everybody. Welcome to the Training, Learning, and Development community. Thanks for tuning in this morning. I'm really happy that you're here. I'm happy to have an excellent guest, a fantastic member that has been supporting TLDC for quite a few years now. Margie, and many of you may know her. Many of you, if this is your first time, you're in for a real treat. Margie's been on TLD cast, I don't know, at least half a dozen times or so. And actually, I was just reflecting about when I first met you, Margie, which was in 2006. Was it 2016? Yeah, TLDC 16, when you came in.
That's right.
And we had done like this series of things on reflection at that conference. And I think that's when we kind of connected. You were at the event, and you kind of helped out a little bit, talked about how the brain functions and neuroscience, and just how reflection is a positive thing for all of that. So, and it was great meeting you. Since then, you've just been kind of a part of some of the things that we do. So I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I remember at the time we called it the unconference.
Right. It was kind of an unconference. It definitely was.
Yeah. I really liked the approach of keep it small, keep a community, make it possible to network.
Yeah. You getting a little bit of an echo there?
I am.
Take a look and see if you've got an extra browser open that we might be in.
Oh, you know what? When I was trying to get in, I did. Hold on just a sec. Let me see if I can fix that for us.
That's probably why we had that mystery user that was that we started out with. Anyway, I hope you guys had a nice weekend. I had a long weekend myself. Had a birthday weekend, so I was doing a lot of traveling, but I'm glad to be back here today.
I think
so these member showcases, I don't know, some of you may be familiar with this format, but we're really focused on trying to build the community here. And a lot of this is what it's about is just getting to talk to people that are supporting TLDC, that are part of this community, that are kind of active participants, and just getting to know one another. I know that with conferences sort of like getting rescheduled or on hiatus, it's like, how do you get out and do your networking? And so that's sort of what the focus of this is. And there's so many people that are interesting in L&D. And I thought, I just want to start profiling some of the some of the characters that I come across, and Margie is one of those characters for sure. So Margie, do me a favor and just like give everybody the rundown on who you are and what you do. You're an author, an expert, a speaker, all of those things.
Okay, sure. I help organizations apply cognitive science, which these days is a really exciting emerging field that is changing all the time. And I help them apply it to enhance learning and performance. So I'm a learning consultant. My company is learningtogo.info, and you can find me online. I'm also happy to be a member of TLDC. Usually these calls I'm already on the phone with clients back east or in the UK or something. So it's hard for me to be here live, but I do catch a lot of the recordings. I got interested in the brain because my brain's a bit unusual. Actually, everybody's is, but I'm dyslexic. And so I had to learn how my brain worked. And in the process of that, I stumbled across some of these concepts in their early stages of understanding how our brain really works, not how we've been taught it works. So if you went to school, more than 5 years ago, you probably have a lot of misconceptions because a lot of great discoveries have come across since then. I have one book, which every year makes it as one of the top nonfiction books on Amazon, independent nonfiction books, I should say. And that is Brain Matters, How to Help Anyone Learn Anything Using Neuroscience. And up until COVID-19, I did a lot of sessions like this, but you might have also seen me at ATD and TLDC events and e-learning guild and a lot of other smaller venues. I'm kind of enjoying a little break from all the travel, to be honest, because it can be kind of intense. And that gave me a chance to finish my first real book by a publisher. So I just finished a book for ATD, and I'm very excited about that.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. And I didn't know about the dyslexia piece about you, Margie. That's really
Oh
cool to
yeah,
know.
didn't come up, I guess. Yeah, and that it is a whole spectrum, and just recently it's been discovered that it is on the same spectrum, way over on a different side, um, than um, uh, than some other syndromes or unique brain functions. And so there's a connection there that they haven't quite figured out, but they're narrowing in on how it works. And in my case, I actually have more connections than the average brain. And so sometimes they kind of miswire. So, you've heard the thing switching numbers and letters and things like that. So I can blame my poor spelling and my weak math on that. But it also lets me do other things. So, everything we have is a gift. And I think during the pandemic, I've become more aware of that than ever, of just how grateful I am for the things I have.
Yeah, it's a good time for that, isn't it? In fact, it's
Yeah.
funny. I was diagnosed with epilepsy when I was a kid. I haven't had a seizure in years, though, but
Oh,
and that's another brain function. I had never
mhm.
really kind of connected that to this conversation, but yeah, definitely so interesting. And Eric is saying my youngest is on the spectrum.
Yeah.
ABA and many publications are enlightening me on how the brain works.
Yeah.
Just definitely a fascinating field to be in right now. But yeah, so this is good stuff. Let's talk about let's get into some of these questions as
Okay.
part of your showcase. This is really fun stuff. It's really informal, and I really just want people to get to know you, know a little bit about your expertise, and you can answer these from kind of a filter of either a professional or a personal, sort of reply. So feel free to go either way. But why don't you talk about, maybe you started talking about this, but what are you working on right now?
Yeah. So this book, and the title is still being kind of worked out, but it's about the convergence of neuroscience and artificial intelligence, because both studying neural networks, and in fact, they're helping each other. So we're making much more rapid advances now, because in the last few years, neuroscientists started using artificial intelligence to process that your brain is the most complex thing we know. And with over 100 billion cells, and each of those cells connected and interconnected with each other, the complexity, the sheer complexity of what we're studying was so great that it was hard to make much progress. And what artificial intelligence can do is crunch numbers a lot better and recognize patterns. And because it doesn't have it sometimes has bias, but not the same bias as a human researcher. It sees things that even if you could crunch the numbers that quickly, you wouldn't see. So it's great for pattern recognition. And that has really helped neuroscience. Now, what neuroscience has done, on the other hand, is as they get insights into how the brain works, that helps people build better artificial neural networks that are modeled after how the brain works. And so the two have this really great virtuous circle. And in fact, you're seeing a lot of experts in both fields kind of going back to school and picking up the other skill. So really, if you want to talk spectrum, they're kind of part of the same spectrum.
Wow.
Now, what I do is not all that great experimental stuff. What I do is stay on top of it. And I talk to a lot of those folks, and I work on translating it into practical things. Not all of it's immediately translatable. An awful lot of it has practical applications, even if all it does is validate something we already knew, but we knew it without any scientific evidence behind it. And now we have the science that gives us a little more strength as a profession to make our recommendations. So we can be much more intentional about how we're applying it.
That is fascinating. I work for a media company that a technology media company, and a lot of what comes across my desk are articles and publications that are specifically talking about machine learning and AI.
Yeah.
And so I see a lot of learning content come through, and I'm like, "Ooh, look, what's this? And I kind of like am thinking, hey, I'm going to check this out like from an L&D perspective, but it tends to be more about computer learning and, and artificial intelligence. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this isn't like, this isn't a human thing. This is a machine thing. But at the same time, I'm like, wow, this is weird because it seems like this, the stuff that they're processing now does apply to human beings in a lot of ways. So
Absolutely. Yeah. If you do a Google search these days, and you put in the word training, for example, you are just as likely to come up with machine learning results. And if you look at a title, it'll say things like the importance of reinforcement learning or the power of language in processing. And then you start to read it and you realize we're talking about machines. Well, it's going to get even tighter than that because artificial intelligence is already in the workplace. It's already in our world, and most of us just haven't recognized it yet. And in the next few years, it's going to hit you in the face. Because one of the things that's happening right now is accelerating the advancement in this field and in data science. Tati is mentioning a data scientist, and hello, Shannon. She's talking about it too. The deal is that COVID-19, the search for both treatments and vaccines is deeply enmeshed in artificial intelligence. Matter of fact, I'm running a program on my machine right now on my home computer that anytime it's available and I'm not using it, it becomes part of a big distributed process to crunch the numbers. And we're testing every known substance for a vaccine. Wow. Well, we're with almost every scientist in the world now working on this program and this particular use of artificial intelligence, there are cross connections and insights that would never have been planned. We couldn't have gotten every scientist in the world to be working on artificial intelligence against one problem. It's kind of like the moonshot, the moon competition back in the day fostered all this technology. And so I expect us to see things come out of there, things that we don't have time right now, but people are going, oh, that's interesting. Look what it did there. And that's once we solve this global problem, artificial intelligence is going to be stronger than ever, and more scientists are going to be directly engaged in it than ever. And that's not going to just shut off. Once we solve that problem, who knows, maybe we can go on and solve some other problems. But as learning professionals, there is no doubt that we are going to be able to use some of these tools to support learning. Matter of fact, a lot of folks already are. There's a lot of applications and examples, and they're coming up in my book, about how you can use very targeted artificial intelligence right now to help people learn, to provide immediate, very relevant reinforcement, practice coaches, even kind of quasi counseling when someone needs to talk through a problem. Lots of examples. Very exciting.
Fascinating. That is great stuff. Wow. I mean, we could probably talk about this for an entire hour if we have the time. But let me get to the second question. What is your favorite part of your profession?
I think it's just helping
what you do.
What I like most about what I do is what we're doing right now, talking with people who are just as excited as I am about learning, staying in touch with great friends that I've made over the year, making new friends. So one thing I want to encourage everybody to do is get in touch. I'm throwing my email in here. I just think as a community, learning professionals, just by nature, because of what we do, because of what we're drawn to, we're usually very caring. We really care about helping people. And I think that's what I like the most, is that I know I'm doing something important. And now more than ever, many of us are involved in helping our clients or organizations get through this. And we've been asked to step up. And I've been doing that for my clients. So, I kind of like being part of that critical response.
Right. No, I totally agree. I think that's one of the reasons why I've been in this for as long as I have is it's the people, right? It's like it's not like I'm dealing with, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to tick off any other verticals, but I don't think I could do this for a bunch of pharmaceutical reps or something. I have just always loved, trainers and educators and things. And so, that's why I'm in it. I just love being able to support people that are helping other people. And I feel like it's kind of like a ladder of, that hopefully will cascade to just provide like, sort of a positive thing going forward.
Mhm.
So, no, I love that answer. And I think that consistently as I have gone through these showcases and talking to people, that that's pretty much kind
Yeah.
of the answer about it. It's always about people. And I love that. Is there anything that you wish you had known when you had started out?
Yeah, I came into training kind of a roundabout way, which probably is true of a lot of us. I got my education degree in college, and I thought I was going to be an English teacher. Took this summer job in sales, and what we basically were lead generators, and we were supposed to hand over the leads to the salespeople, the real salespeople. Well, I kept closing the deals. And I'd say, I'm sorry, I don't have any leads today, but I got these 3 orders. Is that okay? And so they made me an offer. And it turns out that selling and training are, again, kind of spectrum might be the theme. They're 2 sides of the same spectrum. All I was doing was sitting down and using my education skills and explaining the product and why it mattered instead of all that crazy, pushy, manipulative stuff they had taught me.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that's actually the right way to influence someone and convince them. And if you're helping them, then, and I'm glad you like that connection, Chris. So I think that I had that realization early on, and I didn't fully appreciate it until I circled back into the learning profession. And then it's like, oh, no wonder I was good at that.
Mm-hmm.
So long story short, after being a really strong salesperson, I got offered the chance to do training for salespeople. And that pulled me back in. I went back, got my master's in adult education. I'm now working on a PhD in artificial intelligence. Had some nice jobs in corporate arena, and finally decided I wanted to go out on my own more than 10 years ago. And really haven't looked back. It's been great.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, it seems like you would have a sales background because you're pretty convincing. And you know how to follow up, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So is there a particular project that you're especially proud of that you'd like to talk about right now? Something that you'd like
because I just turned it over to the editor, I definitely have to talk about the book, because my first book was kind of like the rest of my career. It was kind of an accident or afterthought. I was blogging, and someone said, gosh, I wish I had all these bound in a book. And right before I met you, a few months before, I got my first real big speaking engagement, which was at Learning Solutions. And as they were talking to me and helped me get ready, they said, and of course you will promote your book. What is it? And they just assumed I had one. And I'm like, oh, well, I have this blog, but let me get back to you. And so I went out and I pulled together a book from my blog and self-published it. And it turned out to do really well, but I hadn't really sat down to do that. It was just sort of lucky. Working with an editor is a really interesting collaboration, and I'm happy. Thank you, John. Nice to see you. Anyway, I can't wait to see what she comes up with, but she thought of things I would never have thought of. And at first I kind of like, wait a minute, this is my book. But what I'm proud of is understanding that, have the humility to let the professional do what she's professional at. And I can't wait to see how it comes out.
That's awesome. Wow. I'm looking forward to it too. And I can't wait. And we will definitely push this next book out amongst the TLDC community. Is there a person or something, what keeps you inspired?
I think I'm inspired by the everyday people that are on the front lines right now, keeping the rest of us safe. And the healthcare professionals, the first responders, even the people delivering the packages to my house every day that can't just hide, and quarantine themselves. They have a job to do to take care of the rest of us, and they're out there doing it. I just think that's very inspiring right now. You don't have to look very far for inspiration these days.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I was just kind of took like a mini vacation over the weekend just to go visit, and just kind of seeing the folks that are out there just working
Yeah,
and and being essential. It is inspirational, and you kind of just want to thank them for everything you're doing. Like, I'm heading out to the beach and it's like, oh my gosh, it's like, look at these poor folks are just like,
yeah,
they're having to just get out there and they're right in the mix of things. So I totally
yeah.
agree. Anything that you can mention about how you like stay on top of like professional development, what you do to continue to, to be at the top of your game?
Well, I think a lot of it, and you've probably heard of the learning network. It comes with having a personal learning network
Hmm.
that uh, people you can tap into, and actually, some of those folks are on this call.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that is so great about this community is that you have this built-in learning network. So
Mhm.
being able to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I'm looking for this information, or I have a question about this. Have you ever tried this software? That's pretty much what my day looks like. Is
Mhm.
it's phone calls with clients and reaching out to other people, connecting other people, uh, and then I also believe we have to help ourselves. We can't be the shoemaker's children who are always busy making other people's shoes. We never get any shoes ourselves. And that
Mhm.
happens with our learning opportunities too often.
Mhm.
So I mentioned I'm studying online for my PhD, and it's it's been a while since I've been in school. So, relearning how you write a scholarly paper, not a blog post, and the new rules of learning online. And I thought, I teach people online. I design programs online. I can do this. But certainly, it takes effort. It takes commitment. And um, the other thing I do is I have a lot of subscriptions. Just about anything being done in both fields crosses my computer screen. I was going to say my desk, but really isn't. Um, and I'm very lucky that I'm a very fast reader
Mhm.
because I used to be very slow because of my dyslexia.
Mhm.
And my parents sent me to speed reading class in high school. And that has really made a lot of difference for my
Right.
professional development.
I want to mention you. So you posted your email address earlier about, if
Mhm.
anybody wants to connect with you. And, I have to say, just personally, whenever somebody like actually connects with me or just reaches out, it's exciting. Like, I
Yeah,
just,
it
like I
is.
had a
We like
couple over
it.
the weekend. I'm like, oh, cool. Look, here's somebody who was on a cast that just is reaching out and saying hello or has a
Yeah.
question. I mean, you guys really, it's just like, if you guys need anything at all, just feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to help. And Margie, same thing. It's just, it is great to connect with people and be a part of a community. Yeah. So best compliment you've ever received, Margie?
Um, I have two.
Okay.
Uh, my chemistry professor actually, I guess he wasn't a professor in high school, um, wrote on a paper, Margie, you got every question correct, but your process was completely wrong.
Uh,
And that was the dyslexia, because what I would do, if you had to calculate these formulas, is somewhere along, luckily, I kind of double switched. So I would transpose some chemical uh, symbols, and transpose them back. So I got lucky and I got them all right. Um, and one of my clients once said, you know, I work with a lot of creative people, and you're very creative, but you're creative in a practical way. You don't bring me crazy things that aren't doable. And I think creative in a practical way is a very high compliment.
No, that is great. That is great. And both of those compliments that are kind of related to sort of your professional endeavors. You got anything on a
Mm-hmm.
personal level that you want to throw out there?
Well, I'm often told that I'm fun and that I'm, real, that they'll say, gosh, you're exactly the same as you were when I saw you on the stage or on the video.
Mhm.
And that really is true. I really just try and pour myself over to people.
I can totally, yeah, I can attest
Yeah.
to that. Yeah, no, Margie, you're always fun to be around, and it's always wonderful to see you when I do. But so how about this one? What is the most common misconception that like people have about you?
Well, I think sometimes they do think I'm kind of bookish. And I guess I did well in school, and I loved science, but I have a lot of other interests. And a lot of other things I like to do. So I'm not quite as serious, or
As nerdy?
um, yeah, I'm not quite as nerdy. But you know what? On the other hand, I'm totally a nerd. I'm completely a nerd.
Yeah.
I love talking about this stuff. So, nerds rule. Yeah.
Nerd rule. That's right. That's right. How would your best friend describe what you do for a living?
I hope she would say she helps people learn,
Uh-huh.
um, because that's what I'm trying to do.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that question because I've gotten so many varied answers from it. Because a lot of people I think will immediately go to like, okay, so I'm an instructional designer. How do my friends like, how do they even try to articulate like what
Mm.
I do for a living or, and it can be a challenge, but I think that just getting to the basics of it, I think is the way to go. Is there something in particular that you wish you were really good at?
Golf. I play
Really?
it a lot. I'm really addicted to it, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, I'm just like every other amateur. I'm just kind of so.
So. Oh, I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, I wish I had the time myself, and I wish that I was really good at golf. I actually had my time being very addicted
Mhm.
to golf, like going pretty
Yeah.
much every day
Yeah,
and
we
playing.
talked about that once.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and um and then I stopped. I actually got hurt, but it was a lot of fun. So Margie, just with what you do now, I'd like to. I think this would be This is an interesting question. What other kinds of jobs have you worked? You've talked about sales, but anything
Mhm.
else?
Well, like a lot of young girls, my first job was babysitting. And then, I guess my first real job that wasn't babysitting, I was a waitress, and a horrible one, a really awful waitress. I brought things out of order, and you know, make mistakes on the ticket and all kinds of stuff. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
And I had a really interesting job once that actually sort of got me into technology.
Mhm.
Um, I was taking a typing test, and I'm like still in college, but looking for a part-time job, and they test your typing because, at my age, that was pretty much your option. You're going to do secretarial work. And in the middle of the typing test, the woman ran in and said, "Stop, I have a job for you right now," because she could hear my fingers flying over the keys. I type it at the time about 200 words a minute, and now it's down to about 175. That's another thing that has really saved me a lot of time. Um, and it turned out that they needed a word processor, and they trained me in word processing, which was my first chance to work on a computer, because that's what a word processor is. And I kind of got that, and I started talking to them about, well, where are our backups? Aren't we backing this data up? And we could build some templates and not have to reinvent the wheel every time we do a document. And so that really is how I started learning about technology, because it certainly wasn't something that typically a girl was taught in high school.
Right. Oh, I love it. Okay. That all makes
Yeah.
sense. It all makes sense.
All
All
comes
right.
together
So
eventually.
yeah. I got a couple more questions for you, then we're going to
Okay.
wrap up. All right.
All right.
So let's hear this one. If you weren't an L&D professional, what would you be? And professional golfer doesn't count. So what do you got?
I'd probably be an astronomer. That's my other love, and it's one of my hobbies. And I
Oh,
actually thought that's what I was going to be, was an astronomer. And the advanced physics sort of uh, intimidated me.
mhm.
And I'm pretty sure I could have gotten through it. And I loved that. I was inspired by that, and I still love going out and looking at the night sky and actually knowing a little bit about what I'm looking at. So I probably would have been an astronomer.
Wow. And you live in the desert still, right?
Yeah, yeah, great stars, beautiful. Although, and you know what I've noticed with fewer cars on the road, fewer planes in the air, they've gotten better lately. And
Oh,
kind of sad that as people go back to quote normal or whatever normal looks like, we're going to lose some of that.
yeah, yeah. No, that's fascinating. I'm glad you shared that with us. That's really an interesting little tidbit about you.
Yeah.
Okay, one more just general one more question. If there's one thing about you that people should know, what is it?
Okay, besides the fact I have a new book coming out,
Yeah.
it would be like we were saying earlier. If you're looking for research, if you just want some advice, if you're looking to connect, um, that's what I do. That's what I'm interested in. So never hesitate to reach out. I put my Twitter handle up earlier. You'll find me on Twitter every day, sharing the most interesting research I've seen. And a lot of you folks are, we're already connected. And some of my good friends I first met on Twitter. So
No, that's great. That's lovely.
it's
And
good.
we should also are you still doing your podcast at all or no?
You know what? I've not done it in a long time, but I'm glad you asked because what I'm thinking of doing is starting like a video cast instead.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Let's
it
talk about
just
that.
makes, yeah. So, instead of, it would be not so much like what you do with a live chat, but more just invite people to chat with me, record it, and put it up on my channel. So I just think video is more engaging, and you get to learn more about the person. I
Yeah,
did have some really interesting guests, so the podcast is still up there.
yeah.
It just you'll notice that I haven't done anything with it in about a year, and that's because that time I was writing that book. So
Yeah.
now I can kind of sit back and I'm kind of deciding what do I want to do now, and so it's probably going to look a little different.
Awesome. Okay. And you know what? We actually have a question from Chris here.
Uh-huh.
That he added to the QA. Other than your own book, what is one book that you suggest that we read? This is a great question, Chris. I might actually steal this one from you and ask it for future.
That is a great question. What I'd really like to do, if this is okay with you, Chris and Luis, is give you guys a reading list, so that because there isn't just one, and that really is true with neuroscience and machine learning and artificial intelligence. Is you need it would do you a disservice to give you just one. So if you guys are okay with that, I can get you a reading list in a couple of days and you can send it out.
I love it. I will post it in the show notes and we'll have it in there so that other people can check
Great.
it out. And so let's see. One of my questions was, to wrap things up is like, where can folks connect with you online? You've already posted your Twitter handle and your email address. And let's see. So that would mean that
I gave my website right at the beginning, learningtogo.info. And remember, some people try the .com and say, hey, your website's down. No, it's .info.
And I'll try to, I'm trying to make sure that I grab all the hyperlinks from chat and post them in the
okay. And I can send them to you to make it easier.
Yeah. So, and folks, just so that you have it, I'm going to go ahead and post the link. If you want to see other, the showcases that we've done, you can just go to, let me grab this link here, drop that in. And this is where I'll be posting, Margie's, this conversation today. It'll also be in the podcast, so you can, go back and listen to the audio. And, other than that, I really appreciate your time today, Margie. It's always great.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for participating and sharing with us. And until next time.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Great to see you.
All right. Oh, before I forget, we do have one more broadcast this week. So it is, Nick Floro and Kristen Hayden Safdie are going to be talking about the DBQ project, which Nick won Demo Fest, a couple other awards for building that out. That's going to be.
I heard about that.
I'll come back to that. All right.
Yeah, very exciting.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.